I don't know, I haven't been this torn about how I feel about a book in a long time. One of my favorite books that I've read this year. Hello, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the final vlog of Summerween. Today, right now, as I'm filming this, it is day 6. And if you missed the previous Summerween vlogs, I will have both of those linked down below. This vlog that you're about to watch is going to include the final 2 days of Summerween. I cannot believe we've already made it to the last 2 days. I don't know if it's because I was working in the bookstore this year, but I feel like this year has gone by so much faster than previous years. But the good news about that is that I am not feeling burnt out on reading at all. You know, because typically by the time we get to this point in the readathon, I'm like kind of struggling and feeling like not as in the mood to read. But that is not the case this year. I am kind of bummed today, you know, because like I was mentioning at the end of my last vlog, me and my sister had plans to go to the lake today. And I was like really excited because I was like, which lake are we going to go to? Because there's one lake that we really like to go to if we're going to swim. And then there's another lake that we really like to go to if we're just going to like lounge and like want nice views and a more relaxing experience, you know? And I was so set that like I really wanted to go to the lake today where we could do some swimming because I haven't done the swimming in the lake thing in so long. And then today I wake up and it's like a really cloudy day outside and it's only like 68 degrees. What the heck? I swear that I'm cursed because I swear this happened to me last summer too. It's like anytime I plan a day to go swimming at the lake, I wake up to a day where it's like overcast and cloudy and kind of cold outside. So now I don't want to swim. So I think because of that, we're probably going to go to the lake that just has incredible views and just do some reading by the water. Like that's my goal for today now. And last night I did get a chance to start reading Helpless by Jessica Knoll, and this one is a thriller that I've been so excited and also really curious to read because this is from the same author as Bright Young Women, which is like one of my favorite books of all time. But I've been a little bit nervous to read this one because I just felt like, you know, after reading the premise and like the synopsis, I was like, this one sounds like it's going to be very, very different. I'm about 50 pages into this one, and right at the beginning, I was like, okay, like I don't know how I'm feeling about this because I feel like our main character, Faye, she kind of comes off like a little bit like self-obsessed. I don't know, the synopsis talks about how it's been 12 years since Faye broke Henry Spalding's heart, and Henry was her college boyfriend, and they were like very intensely in love with each other, and we kind of get like flashbacks to like how erotic and like over the top their sex life was. It was almost kind of reading like a dark romance at parts, and this book has been very heavy on the romance so far, which, you know, I actually don't mind because I've been in such a romance mood anyway, so like I don't really mind the romance that I'm exploring between these two characters. But now, you know, the story's taking place 12 years later when both of them are married and they're kind of like seeing each other again for the first time. It says now Faye is one half of a Hollywood power-producing duo with her husband, and that's kind of what makes her a little bit self-obsessed in my opinion, because she keeps talking about how she's like starring in these like really cool things and like these really cool projects, and she's just kind of like making the assumption that other people haven't seen it. But like the way that she's thinking about herself in her head just comes across as a little bit like narcissistic, but I feel like that's intentional, and I actually don't mind that about her. Like I find her to be a very entertaining character so far. And it says Henry is a married father running the family business, and she kind of like gets to see him interacting with his wife and his children, and she's like, that is so weird because that is not the guy that she knew back in her college days. But now 12 years later, the only reason they're seeing each other again is because it says when their former professor suddenly passes away, they find themselves back on campus for the memorial. So that's why they're seeing each other again after so long. It says they're circling something old and dangerous, something, if Faye is honest with herself, she's been trying to duplicate for years, but Henry is one of a kind, the kind who delivers a hypnotic apology for the way things ended, the kind who suggests they go back to the hotel for a drink, the kind who drugs and kidnaps her. And then the end of the synopsis kind of talks about how Faye comes to in Henry's remote mountain cabin. She's beside herself, and I guess it's a story about how he literally drugs and kidnaps her. Like, I don't know. I mean, 50 pages in, I haven't quite gotten there yet. But you know, I've got to say, like 50 pages in, I am liking this a little bit more than I thought that I would. Just because hearing that synopsis, I was like, you know, I don't know. I feel like sometimes when a thriller's main premise is like, this guy drug and kidnaps this girl, I'm like, I need a little bit more to the story than just that happening. So like, we'll have to see if I'm still enjoying it as much once that's like the main story that I'm reading about. But like, there was something about the synopsis that was kind of giving me like Frida McFadden vibes. But I am happy to let you know that at the very least, I am liking this writing more than the typical Frida McFadden that I've read. It shouldn't surprise me because I do think Jessica Knoll is a really talented writer. And I mean, I think that's the main reason why Bright Young Women is one of my favorite books of all time. But this one does feel very different in tone than than some of the other thrillers that I've been reading recently, because this one definitely feels like it has this like dark romance kind of like erotic vibe to it, because Faye obviously like desperately still wants Henry, you can tell, even though they're both married, and she keeps having all of these flashbacks to a lot of their really dark past erotic experiences, and you kind of get to see some of what they were doing before, so it is entertaining, I will give it that. Anyway, my sister is on her way over for breakfast. She's gonna be here in the next like 15 minutes, and my dad is going to be making his famous breakfast burritos. Him and my sister really love to make the chorizo breakfast burritos, but because I have GERD, it's so unfortunate. Like, I really can't do the chorizo, especially in the mornings. For some reason, it just kind of like triggers my acid reflux. So thankfully, my dad is so amazing and such an icon because he makes mine with sausage so that I can eat it, which really sucks for me, you know, because chorizo smells so good and I want to be able to eat it so badly, but there's just some things that I still cannot do with my GERD. And like chorizo is one of those things, and then pepperoni is one of those things, marinara sauce, like those are just things that I cannot have anymore. Like, they just immediately trigger my acid reflux and it makes me miserable. So I've had to cut those completely out of my life. Anyway, I'm very excited. Let's get started with day 6 of Summerween. Okay, hello, it is now like 2:30 in the afternoon and we are leaving the lake. It has been such a beautiful day. I mean, it was a little bit cold, you know, to be sitting by the lake, so I did have to put on my hoodie for like most of the time that I was there. But otherwise, it's been a really beautiful day. The sun ended up coming out for like the last hour that we've been sitting there. So that was kind of nice, but I have been reading Helpless by Jessica Knoll. This book has been so entertaining so far. Like, I don't know what it is about this, but it is very different from the vibe of Bright Young Women, because I feel like Bright Young Women was a book that felt so like literary and so serious and so like heartfelt, you know, like that was the kind of book that could make you cry. Whereas like this book, this feels kind of more like a guilty pleasure, almost like a dark romance. Like, there's a lot of erotic scenes in this book and it feels like it's completely different from this author's previous book. And so I guess I kind of understand why this book is getting low ratings, because it really might not be what you're expecting. But I personally have been having a really fun time with it. It almost kind of reminds me of like Verity or something by Colleen Hoover, where like the characters are just really messy. These two characters, Faye and Henry, like both of them are very messy at times, and you can tell that their connection with each other is pretty intense. They're pretty obsessed with the sex life that they have with each other, even all of these years later. And it almost like reminds me of like how I wanted to feel when I was reading that book, A Twisted Love Story, the one by Samantha Downing. I feel like this is the vibe that that book was trying to have, where like you have these two messy, complicated characters who are like really obsessed with each other in a way that feels very toxic, but it's like you can't look away from the page. I feel like that's everything that I wanted from A Twisted Love Story, but I just really didn't like that book. Like, I found them both to be so obnoxious. Whereas like in this book, I don't know, there's something about the way that these characters, like Faye and Henry, they're both written in a way where like I just find them to be so fascinating, and I can't look away from the dynamic that's happening between them, even though he has captured her and he's taken her to this like remote cabin, and it's turned into like a pretty intense situation. I was also like, I was saying this to my sister, but I was like, this is so weird because this copy that I have right here is an ARC copy. So like, I know that, you know, when an ARC book comes out, there are some changes made sometimes before the final edition of the book comes out. And because I'm listening to the audiobook, which is like the final version of the book, I am noticing so many huge changes from this original ARC. I mean, there will be like some sentences that have been changed to be like worded a little bit better, but then also like there have been full paragraphs that have been like removed from this original ARC. So I think it's really interesting to like be able to see both when I'm following along with the audiobook. I'm just about halfway through the book at this point, so I'm hoping that I can finish up the rest of this today, because I feel like this book has just been so readable. You know, it's like one of those train wrecks that like you can't look away from. So I am liking this more than I thought I would, which feels really amazing. Anyways, we are going to be heading back to the house now, and I'll keep you posted with my final thoughts. hello. It is just after 5 o'clock at night. As soon as I got home from the lake, I ended up just like laying here in my bed and finishing up the rest of Helpless. And I just finished reading this like a few minutes ago. And I'm honestly so torn over how I feel about this book. Like, I don't even know what I want to rate this because part of me really enjoyed certain aspects of this book. And then part of me is kind of feeling disappointed by a few different things. I mean, the main thing with this one is that the ending felt a little bit abrupt. I don't know, I guess I just wanted a little bit more closure about certain things, but then there were certain aspects of the ending that I thought were like really clever. And oh my gosh, when you finally realize why this book is called Helpless, like this one character delivers a line and I was like, oh shit, like that was juicy. I just think this book isn't exactly what I was expecting it to be. Like, this is definitely more of a dark romance and kind of like a toxic romance dynamic as opposed to a thriller. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely some like thriller elements and there is a little bit of a mystery happening, but I think the story is so much more about, you know, this character Faye and this toxic relationship that she had with this guy Henry when she was in college, and the way that she's kind of like always chasing that feeling again with other people. And I actually wanted a little bit more from this book in terms of like, I wanted to know why she was the way she was. Like, we would get some flashback chapters of like her childhood and kind of like seeing how she was treated by her parents. And I feel like those scenes were really helpful in like trying to understand her character and like why she is how she is. But I feel like I wanted even more from her backstory. I have seen a lot of people on Goodreads compare this to like 50 Shades of Grey or something because it does kind of have that like BDSM vibe to the story. A lot of scenes in this book that are like on page sex scenes. So I think if that's not something you're interested in reading, then like I probably wouldn't recommend this one because it is really heavy on the sex. And it's almost to the point sometimes where you're not entirely sure if it's like 100% consensual. Like, there are definitely some times where you're like, oh my gosh, like, are we crossing some boundaries here? And both of these characters could be so like messy and toxic in their own ways. But it was also like one of those stories where like I could not pull my eyes away from the page and I was just constantly like, oh, like that's what we're doing. Like, sometimes I was really invested in what was going on, and then sometimes I was like, oh, like sometimes the things that they would say to each other would like give me the ick in like a bad way, but it was also like I couldn't stop reading. I don't know, I have such mixed feelings about this book. Like, genuinely, there were some parts of it that were so good that are gonna stick with me, and I do think overall the dynamic between Faye and Henry and like the way that they would speak to each other was really interesting. It's like they know each other well enough to like really be able to get under each other's skin, but then also like sometimes the way that they would think about certain things, I was like, that's not cool, dude. Like, for example, there's this other male character in this story and he's constantly being criticized because he has such a low sex drive, and they say that he has the sex drive of a doorknob, and they just like keep being critical of him for that, and I just didn't think that was really fair. I can definitely see though why this one is getting some lower ratings because I feel like this is going to be a really divisive book. This story to me actually feels more like something that could have been written by like Colleen Hoover or maybe like Vi Keeland. It kind of has that same like bingeable readability to it. So I think I'm probably going to give this like 3.5 stars. Like, I don't think I can give it anything higher than that, but this book was very entertaining for me in a way that not a lot of other 3 stars have been, if that makes sense. I don't know, I haven't been this torn about how I feel about a book in a long time. I also think that I'm glad that I read this book at this point in my life because like, oh my gosh, if I had read this book like maybe like 5 years ago, I probably would have hated it. But I feel like these days especially, I'm liking more and more when I read about like toxic couples and like dark romances and like complicated dynamics. And I feel like me, you know, like 5 years ago, like I used to have absolutely no patience for books like this. But like now, I don't know, I kind of like the push and pull of like a toxic character dynamic. I just find it to be so interesting. Anyway, I have so many feelings about that book and I have no idea how to verbalize my thoughts. But anyway, it is just after 5 o'clock at night. I think I'm going to make one of my other HelloFresh dinners that I have. It's like one of my favorites. It's the ground beef with like the green beans and the crispy onions, and it goes over white rice. Oh my god, it's so good. They have that like sweet soy glaze sauce that is like one of my favorites, and it just makes the beef taste so flavorful. And then later tonight, I don't know if I'm gonna get any more reading done tonight. Like, I don't know, we'll have to see. But I'm gonna see if my mom is up for watching any more X-Files. You know, I know this morning when she woke up, she wasn't feeling very well, you know, because of the pneumonia that she's been dealing with for the past few weeks. But I was talking to her when I got home from the lake, and she seemed like she was doing a little bit better. But for now, I need to make dinner because I'm starving.
to turn on every siren. Still you can hear me scream, 'cause still I am alive.
Hello, good morning, and happy day 7 of Summerween. Can you believe we made it to the end? I can't believe it's the final day. So if you were wondering, last night I didn't end up reading anything more. I was actually hearing about this new Netflix game that's called Unhinged, and people were saying that it's like a really scary game that you can play on Netflix, and it's kind of like interactive. So I was like, okay, maybe that would be something cool to do for Summerween. And so I couldn't get it to work on my TV because I don't know if like our app just isn't updated on the TV, but I got it to work on my laptop. And dude, this game was crazy. You're trapped in this apartment building and there's a killer on the loose and you're like trying to get away from the killer. And it's actually so scary. Like, I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. So like I hate playing scary games like this, but I also love it at the same time. Like, it was really fun. But it's really cool how it works because you scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, and then your phone is almost like your way to navigate through the building. And it's really cool because they actually got Zoe Kravitz to do the voiceovers for the character that's like you're playing her on the screen. And then also Sadie Sink is the one who does the voice of the girl who's like your best friend that lives next door, and she's kind of like calling you on your phone while you're like walking through the house. And it's crazy because since your phone is kind of like the remote and like how you're navigating, it's so crazy because the audio of the phone call actually comes through your phone. Oh my god, it was like the most trippy thing ever. It was so cool. And it's kind of awesome because you're pointing your phone around as like a flashlight to like look through the building. Oh my gosh, it was horrifying and it was so cool. So that's what I ended up doing last night. And then I did watch one episode of the X-Files with my mom. And then right now it's almost about to be noon because this morning I had to film this video that I had to get done. So I am glad that I got this video done that I needed to get filmed because it's my mid-year freak out book tag. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's about to be like mid-July and I still haven't done this book tag. I feel like in the years past, I've always done this book tag like in the month of June. And so like the time has just really gotten away from me. And so hopefully the next video that you're going to be seeing after this one is going to be my mid-year freak out book tag that I just filmed right now. So I'm glad that I got that done this morning. And I was sitting here thinking like, what do I want to read today? Because, you know, we're on the last day of Summerween and I have so many books still that are on my TBR that I would like to get to. But I feel like the book that is calling to me the most right now has got to be this book called We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. And I just got the audiobook checked out from my library for this last night, so it kind of feels like a sign from the universe that I should be reading this today. I don't think this one technically matches like the vibe of like Summerween because I think this one's actually more of like a sci-fi and maybe even more of like a literary fiction novel because it's about these two gay men who are like living in this little camper and it's like the end of the world. We follow these two husbands and it says the world is ending for real. A rogue black hole is coming for Earth and in a month everything and everyone they've known will be gone. And it says after they've spent 40 years together and they're going to be traveling from Maine all the way to Washington State in their little camper. I don't know, I just randomly bought this at the bookstore where I work last week because I saw it and I was just like, this looks so cute and it sounds so beautiful and it's only like 160 pages. It's a novella. And even though this technically isn't like a thriller or horror book or something I would typically read during Summerween, it still feels like the thing that's calling to me most today. Like, this is the book that I'm dying to read. Also, it's like maybe it would be fun to read a book about the end of the world at the end of the readathon. So I think I'm going to pack my bag and like head to one of my local cafes so that I could read this book in a cafe today. Who knows, maybe I could end the readathon with a 5-star. I don't want to put too much pressure on this, but I'm getting good vibes from this. I don't know why I feel like this book is gonna wreck me the way that that one episode of The Last of Us wrecked me. If you know, you know. So anyway, I'm gonna get ready to leave soon and start reading this one. I just finished reading We Burn So Bright and I Am Not Doing Well. Oh my god, this book just emotionally wrecked me. I knew that I was in danger because when I was reading this in the coffee shop earlier, my eyes like welled up with tears within the first like 50 pages and I was like staring at the ceiling being like, oh my god, do not cry in public. And then I decided to drive back home and just take a quick walk while I was listening to like the last 30 minutes and like what a mistake that was, because then I was like actually crying on my walk and I was like, if anybody's looking at me right now, they probably think that I'm like delirious. Like, what is that girl doing holding this book, clutching it to her chest and like sobbing while she's walking? And thank god I made it home before I read those final like 5 pages, because oh my god, I feel like my heart just got ripped out and like stomped on. But I loved this. I love this so much. 5 stars. One of my favorite books that I've read this year. Oh my god, dude, this just hit me. I don't know if like this was just exactly the book that I needed to read today. I actually think it's incredible how much TJ Klune made me care about these characters so much in only 160 pages. Like, I absolutely adore this married couple, Dawn and Rodney. You know, like I was saying, this book is kind of depressing because it's about the end of the world. Like, these characters know that there's this black hole and the black hole is coming for Earth, and they don't know exactly how much time they have left, but they estimate that it's going to be about a month. And you know, we're just following this married gay couple, Rodney and Dawn, and they've been together for 40 years, and they decide that now is the time to take this road trip from Maine all the way to Washington State in this little RV that they bought. And they do have a purpose for this trip, which you don't find out until a little bit further into the book. But like, god, this story was so beautiful. There are so many quotes about like humanity and whether humanity is something that deserves to be remembered that just like really gutted me. There was so much about this book that actually reminded me of one of my favorite sci-fi novellas that I've read this year, which was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. It actually reminded me a lot of that book for so many reasons, but the main thing being that the story is really about humanity, you know, like at the heart of it. And that's exactly how I felt about that Becky Chambers novella. There was this one part where this character was talking about these different probes that they were like sending out into outer space in the hopes that someday somebody will be able to find them and they'll be able to like discover humanity. They said maybe one day they'll be discovered, maybe our voices will be heard again even though we're no longer here. And what a legacy that is, coming together to make something so impossible, something so human, and then sending it to the stars. We filled it with so much of what makes us tick that it's overwhelming, but isn't it a lie? Say that the records are found, they're listened to, we're heard even though there's no one left to confirm. What will those beings think? That we were loving, kind, and hopeful? Is that what we deserve? Oh my god, like the way that this book talks about humanity and the way that we treat other people, especially from the perspective of like an elderly gay couple who has lived through some shit. And I feel like this quote especially hit me because I feel like I really relate to this idea when it says, I don't know that we deserve to be remembered, but then there's a part of me, a big part, a human part that says I'm wrong, that even with all of our faults, we did something special. We were something extraordinary. Of all the chances in the universe, what's the likelihood that we'd survive long enough to learn to love and to hate? It says, do we live to be remembered or do we live to live? And I think the one quote that really captures the vibe of this entire book is when it says, it's the duality of humanity, one side capable of great love and the other great harm. There's nothing like us anywhere. And I just really loved how in this story, you get to see how all of humanity is like responding to this situation that's helpless. You know, like there's nothing that they can do. There's a black hole coming. And even though this story does talk a little bit about the black hole, it's not really about that. Like, it's definitely more of a character-driven story about these two guys and like what they've been through in their lives and like what led them to this point. But we do get brief moments like in between the chapters that'll be like, this is where the black hole currently is and it just tore this planet apart. And like, this is our new time estimation for like how much longer we have left. And we get to hear like words from the president about what they're saying to people. And it's all just like really scary and really horrifying. But it also just makes you think about humanity and like what makes life worth living and like what would you be doing in your final days if this were to happen. And these two characters, oh my god, Rodney and Dawn, dude, they were so cute. Like, this was so romantic. It was so sweet. The way that they would talk about how their love for each other had like changed over the years and like grown into something softer, and like all of the different obstacles that they faced together as a couple. Like, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. They were just so freaking cute. And my heart just like broke for them so many times during this. One of the quotes that I just absolutely adored that was talking about the way they loved each other, it says, Rodney smiled, a small thing, a quick upward tug of the lips. Only for Dawn. He was like that, not with everyone, but it could take time for him to warm up to people, and yet here, so far from home and among strangers, that little smile, their secret language. And this other quote too, Dawn knew that he was loved, knew it to the moon and back, but every now and then, Rodney would talk like this, pointed, directed, real. It was one of the million reasons Dawn cared for him so deeply. Sometimes people saw Rodney just as he appeared, a quiet, somewhat ornery old man. He was more, he was so much more. Like, dude, they are so precious, I can't even handle it. And I just feel like TJ Klune did such a great job with like building the mystery in this book as well, because they keep talking about something that has happened in their past and how they want to make things right before the end of the world. And you're trying to figure out like, what is it that's in Washington State? Like, why are they going there? What are they doing? Like, what specifically happened in their past? And when I tell you that the last 20 pages of this book, oh my God, it just made my heart shatter and it made me feel so emotional. And like, I don't even know how to describe my feelings. And this did remind me a lot of that one episode of The Last of Us, the episode that was about the gay couple. Like, if you know, you know. I think this book would be the perfect recommendation if you enjoyed that episode too. This book felt like a mix of that episode from The Last of Us and To Be Taught If Fortunate. It felt like a combination of those things, and I loved that about this. My God, I'll never stop thinking about this book. Like, truly, this is a masterpiece. And I think I loved this so much because this had a lot of things that I usually really love, like the very subtle sci-fi vibes with like the end of the world looming, and then also like a really cute gay elderly couple. Like, are you kidding me? I also loved this because I do tend to love books these days that follow these elderly protagonists where they get to like reflect back on their life and their youth and thinking about their regrets and their mistakes and the things that they would have done differently. And the way that this book talked about humanity was just so beautiful and like so heart-wrenching at the same time. I just love these characters so much, and I'll never shut up about this. So wow, I cannot believe I'm ending Summerween with another 5-star. Like, we started Summerween with a 5-star and we're ending it with a 5-star. And like, I don't even know which book I love more, to be honest, because I feel like Fabulous Bodies by Chuck Tingle is a very different vibe from this one. But that is a wrap on Summerween. I was actually able to read 7 books this week. I mean, this stack does not include the Chuck Tingle because I read that one on my Kindle, and technically I did DNF the Rachel Harrison book here, but the fact that I was able to read 7 books this week and I had 1 DNF on top of that, that's actually amazing to me, especially considering the fact that I was working throughout this week. And I'm just so thrilled that I was able to read so much and that I enjoyed so many of the books that I read this week. And as far as like checking in with the prompts go for this readathon, I think the only one that I didn't hit was like reading a book in the dark or at night. I mean, I technically did do some reading in the dark throughout this week. Like, I was reading on my Kindle some nights before bed, but unfortunately I didn't end up reading anything like entirely in the dark this week, so I don't think I can check off that prompt. And then for our bingo board, I think I can check off everything except for reading a book in the dark, and then also baking a treat. I never got around to baking a treat this week. Oh my gosh, it was just so busy. But I did listen to a spooky playlist. I have my little Halloween playlist on Spotify that I've been listening to throughout this week, and I also did watch a horror movie, Obsession, which was really good and I can't stop thinking about it. And as far as like making a fun drink goes, I mean, I did make a coffee at home one of these days. I don't know if that counts as like a fun drink because that's like my usual drink. But anyway, that is a wrap on Summerween 2026. I can't believe it's over. You'll have to let me know, how did Summerween go for you? How many books did you read? Did you find any new favorites? Also, for anybody that participated in Summerween, definitely let me know if you've posted a Summerween vlog. I've been making a playlist of all of the Summerween content that I've been seeing, and I will include the link to the playlist down below if you're looking for more Summerween content, because I know that I love to discover so many new creators because of Summerween. So if you do have a Summerween vlog, definitely let me know in the comments so I can add you to that playlist. And if you're looking for more Summerween content, then definitely check out that playlist down below, because there are so many amazing creators who have been participating in Summerween this year. And like, thank you so much to anybody who took the time to participate in Summerween this summer, because it means so much to me. And it's so cool to see that even after so many years, people get really excited about this readathon, and it really means the world to me. I genuinely feel so connected to this community during this readathon, and it's just really fun to see everybody get so involved and like posting on Instagram all the daily challenges. It's just a really great time. So thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.